Hey MVPs, Ricoknows here, still doing our win totals. I'm going to deep dive Arkansas today. Just finished the Big Ten. I am going alphabetical by conference, so now we're in the SEC. But I want to remind you guys, my video on Alabama was one of the very first videos I ever did. I did Colorado, then Alabama. So if you want to find that, you got to go way back on the playlist, go to the collection on Patreon, and you will find the video on Alabama and their win total. You got to be careful, guys. The numbers are changing. I wish I made this video sooner because at the beginning of all this, Arkansas was a 5.5 win team. And that was an easy bet to make. There's no way they were going to win 6 games. So 5.5 was going to be the easiest win ever. I never got around to it. It's on me, but I hope we can get it right here. So now it's at 4.5. Vegas has refined it, knocked it down a little bit. And why did they go down? Why did they go down to 4.5? Let's talk about it. We'll go there. So last season, you saw Arkansas beat the crap out of Western Carolina. No big deal. Beat up Kent State, the worst team in America. And this was probably the red flag we all needed. At this point, when you're playing the worst team in the MAC, one of the very worst FBS teams in the world, and you don't cover the spread, and you only win by 22 points, something's not looking right. And sure enough, you lose to BYU the next week. You lose to LSU, A&M, and the losses just keep coming. You don't win another game in conference until you get to Florida and you win in overtime, and you had 2 weeks to prepare for that game. Then these back-to-back losses. I say back-to-back because I don't even count the FIU game. But back-to-back losses, 48-10 and 48-14 to Auburn and Missouri to end the season. I don't know how Pittman kept his job. No clue. I don't know how he obviously lost the locker room. KJ Jefferson looked absolutely terrible. Raheem Rocket Sanders looked terrible. And it's just one of these things where you keep your head coach, maybe because you don't want to pay for the buyout and stuff, and then you go and hire Petrino. If you guys aren't aware, Bobby Petrino is the new offensive coordinator for Arkansas. Former Arkansas head coach, fell off a motorcycle, had a neck brace, the whole nine. It's pretty neat to see Petrino get hired again by his old team, but it's a little shocking. They also lost their running backs coach. I want to say his name is Jimmy Smith. Don't quote me. I might be slipping the name there. But they lost the running backs coach, and that's important because he was from Cedar Grove here in Georgia. He was the pipeline to all the Georgia recruits, and we'll get into that. And he just left for TCU to be their running backs coach. So Arkansas has had a ton of turnover this offseason, and rightfully so. You have a terrible team. You probably want to improve your roster. And I know that in the fall, or in the winter, I should say, when we saw all the players hit the portal, you immediately thought Arkansas is worse. Arkansas has lost everybody. They lost KJ Jefferson, lost Raheem Sanders. They lost Jaheim Thomas in the spring. They lost their best players in the portal. But guys, after looking at this team, I'm just going to tell you that I think they're going to be better on the field. Like, their product's going to be better. They obviously have a better offensive coordinator. They have better players too. People don't realize it, but they do. And I'm going to tell you guys, KJ Jefferson, gone, went to UCF. Jacoby Criswell, gone, went back to North Carolina, whatever that's about, right? So you lose the only 2 quarterbacks you used all year, but they have other quarterbacks. I'll talk about them when I pull up the depth chart and we go there. KJ Jefferson led this team in rushing. That is terrible. That is outrageous. You should have at least a 1,000-yard rusher if you're at Arkansas. A.J. Green is a speed demon. He ended up leaving for Tulsa, then flipping to Oklahoma State. He'll be the backup running back. He's a speed demon. He's incredibly fast. The running back room was extremely deep. It was so deep they were recruiting great running backs for a while. Rashad Dubinion, one of those studs from Georgia out of Cedar Grove. Great running back, just a little undersized, and we'll get to him. Raheem Sanders, gone. Isaiah Augusta, gone after 1 year. Dominique Johnson might still be there, but he's not on the depth chart, or at least he's not relevant. He won't get any carries, I promise. Criswell, gone. A bunch of receivers, no big deal. All right. Wide receivers, Andrew Armstrong. This is an FCS transfer. I want to say Texas A&M Commerce. He came in. Then Isaac Tesla. Is it Tesla? I call him Tesla. Isaac Tesla, Division II guy. And, I made videos on these guys on TikTok last year in the offseason. And I just want to tell you that they went out and got some small school guys that can play some football. It's not bad. Luke got injured after the 5th game, I think. And Luke, when I watch him on tape, probably the best tight end nobody talks about. Probably the best receiving tight end no one talks about. Thoroughly impressed with him. Jaden Wilson does not stick out on tape to me. Ty Washington, nope. Satagna, Isaiah Satagna, he's a sophomore. I don't think he's SEC starting material. I see him get some reps there. I don't think he's SEC starting material, and I don't think the team thinks he's starting material, and we'll talk about that. There's the Binion again. Check out Varkey's Gums. I think the coaching staff anticipated losing Varkey's Gums. Varkey's Gums, as a freshman, I think redshirt freshman or freshman, was an all-conference tight end at North Texas, and he was great. But a lot of those North Texas kids that were great, they jumped in the portal and they went and chased their dream. And they transferred to schools they had no chance transferring to. Jair Shorter went to Auburn. The linebacker, I forget his name, Larry Nixon III, he went to Auburn. Deshaun Gaddy went to Ole Miss. The defensive end, I forget his name, he went to SMU. And then you have this one here, Varkey's Gums going over. I think out of the whole bunch, Varkey's Gums the best player. But you get there and you see this Luke Haas guy, and you're like, man, Luke is real. Luke's an NFL guy. So it's going to be one of those things. I still think it's a weapon nobody talks about. We'll keep going. Kicker, going to be a problem. Had a great kicker, don't anymore. Don't anymore. Have the worst kicking I've seen. Their spring game, I was extremely windy, but I don't care. The kicking I was very underwhelmed with. On defense, losing Jaheim Thomas to Wisconsin. This is a former 4-star linebacker. Stayed home, went to Cincinnati, played for Luke Fickell. Then he transferred to Arkansas, led them in tackles. He's an NFL linebacker, 6'4", 250. I love everything about Jaheim Thomas. Well, he just linked back up with his old coach. He left to go to Wisconsin. Chris Paul Jr., a young stud linebacker, second on the team in tackles, and he just left for Ole Miss. Then you have Jaden Johnson, still on the team, but Jaden Johnson, third leading tackler on the team, no longer starting. And that's what I need you guys to understand, is the talent level of these players has gone this way. Thank you to the transfer portal. They have addressed their shortcomings, and a guy who was third on your team in tackles is no longer starting. It's just the way it goes. The one guy that we need to talk about is Landon Jackson. He pops on tape. I believe he's number 40 when you look on tape. I think he has alopecia. This is an LSU transfer, and he's just wrecks havoc. Yeah, 6.5 sacks, but there's more to it than that, man. He just wrecks every play. I love everything about that kid on tape. Landon Jackson looks like a stud, okay? Just awesome. Jordan Crook gone, went to ASU. Arizona State, I didn't think he was impactful. Torrin Carter went to Colorado. Doesn't really move me on the tape that much. Anthony Booker, not a big deal. All these guys. Oh, Jaheim Singletary. That's a guy. That's a 5-star transfer from Georgia. He hasn't quite lived up to the hype, but he's there. That's an athlete. Traden Jeffcoat went for the NFL. Brad Spence. You see this one interception, 85 yards? Don't get caught up on that. I'm going to say something about Brad Spence. When I watch him on tape, he's a white guy, weak side linebacker, will linebacker. Good player. Looks like a good player. I don't care who you bring in. I believe Brad Spence starts. Brad Spence starts over anyone and everyone. He belongs on the field. Yep. I like him a lot. Kiwi Rose, stud defensive lineman, came in, I think from La Tech in the transfer portal. Stud. He, relegated to a reserve role and a rotational role after being the star guy, but that's good depth going into this season. Same with Metcalf. Let's see here. Anybody else worth mentioning? Not really. Nobody else really worth mentioning. So let's go talk about it. Oh, by the way, wide receivers. When I was talking about, I think I skipped over some of these other wide receivers. One of them is Tyrone Broden here. Tyrone Broden is going to be the best receiver on the team. Tyrone Broden is, I don't know if he was injured last year. I don't remember. Probably was. He's a kid coming out of high school. He was like 6'3". Went to Bowling Green. While at Bowling Green, he had a growth spurt. And he's now 6'7", and nobody can cover him. And he comes down with these 50-50 balls. He's a string bean, like he's skinny. But, man, he's a weapon in the spring game. Just coming down with everything. Just making it happen. He's getting better. He's getting more coordinated. He looks like a basketball player who decided to play football. And I'm not talking about those basketball players that play tight end. Tyrone Broden is a thin wide receiver who just makes plays. It reminds me of another kid at Rutgers. I'm forgetting his name. He's also 6'7". These wide receivers 6'7", man. How do you cover that, right? Their arm up. They're at 10 feet now. It's tough. So I like it. Tyrone Broden looks like a mismatched nightmare. Let's go look at this, though. Depth chart. Like I said, Tyrone Broden will be the starter, probably best receiver on the team. There's Tisla, the Division II kid. There's Andrew Armstrong, FCS transfer, Texas Commerce. And then when I start looking at some of these other guys, I'm going to tell you they don't believe in Isaiah Stagna here. Yes, he's in the starting rotation right now as a slot receiver. But bringing in Jordan Anthony, again, a young kid who's a super fast guy on the track. I think he runs like a 10, 400 meters. Jordan Anthony is fast as hell. And he started his college career at Kentucky. But you get to Kentucky as a freshman, and in your class is Keys and Barry and Brown, and you're like, man, I can't even get on the field here. So you transfer to A&M, Texas A&M, and it doesn't work out for you there after 1 year, and now you're at Arkansas. I don't think he should be transferring to all these SEC schools. If you can't play at Kentucky, you can't play at A&M, you can't play at Arkansas. But they keep recruiting him because he's fast. I just don't see the potential there. I'm going to show you another receiver here coming up that I believe will be their starting slot receiver. Fernando Carmona came over from San Jose State, transfer. I'm not too impressed with his work in the film I saw, but they tell me he's a starter. Addison Nichols, a big burly man, moved to center. Congrats. I'll talk about him on the transfer portal list. Blackstock, leaving Michigan State, the Spartans, coming in to start. Patching up the offensive line is a problem. 3 transfers coming in, lack of continuity, got to work with it. It's a problem, but they're doing the best they can. I think it's one of their weakest traits on this team is their offensive line. And they struggled last year because of it when there was no blocking. But one thing you can do when you have a bad offensive line, don't quote me, but you can scheme it. You can scheme it. You can throw screens. You can do misdirection play. You can do certain things to help alleviate the pressure on expecting your offensive line to do their zone blocking or their reach blocking or they're just not going to be able to road grade people, right? They're not the best offensive line in the world. And you're going up against SEC defensive fronts. It's bad news. Luke Haas, like I said, probably one of the better tight ends in America, receiving tight end. He's a stud, top 25 for sure. Varkey's Gums, quietly remarkable. If you watch him on tape, shout out to North Texas and transferring there. Taylon Green, transfer quarterback coming in from Boise. I think he's better than KJ Jefferson. He looked great in the spring game. He spins it, man. His ball, his passes, they have some zip to them. He does throw interceptions. And despite being a dual threat quarterback, because we know he's 6'6" and can run. He's a skinny guy if you don't know him. He's a Texas kid, 6'6" dual threat quarterback. I should have probably started with that. Here's my problem. Last year at Boise, zero 100-yard games. He did not run the way he did back in 2022. In 2022, he had 3 100-yard games, the first 2 games of the season, and then the bowl game. But in this last season, no 100-yard games. And some of the games were like 20, 30 yards rushing. Some of them were like absolutely nothing. I hope they utilize him and his ability to extend plays and run. I think it would be important. The backup quarterback, there's still a competition going on, but man, Malachi Singleton, if you don't know Malachi Singleton, the backup quarterback, he's just a guy who in high school developed earlier than everybody else. He was like 6'2", 230 as a sophomore. All-State. He played at North Cobb here in Georgia. His wide receivers were Dylon Morissette, the wide receiver just transferred from Georgia to Purdue, and then Mbake, who used to be on Arkansas. He hit the transfer portal. Those were his high school wide receivers. And what I'll tell you is they didn't win state. They didn't win a bunch of playoff games. It was bad. And you have a superstar dual threat quarterback in Malachi Singleton. He can actually extend plays and run. He's just not as thin and fast as somebody like Taylon Green. He's a thicker guy that kind of runs a little bit. It's hard to describe. I'm trying to think of a comp, and I don't have one right now. But Malachi Singleton, an athletic guy, competent, can probably move the chains if he had to come in and run the ball a little bit. I don't know about throwing. KJ Jackson looked terrible in the spring game. I didn't like the way he threw. Didn't like what he was doing, but they got him out there. They gave him a shot. And there's another quarterback. Can't remember his name. Jaquinton Jackson, former All-American quarterback coming out of high school. Shout out to Duncanville. Went straight to Texas. UT was there, got injured, recovering the whole year of injury or whatever. Can't start there. They got a guy named Quinn Ewers. So he transfers from Texas, gets to Utah, and finds out I'm not better than Cam Rising. And the running back room is banged up. And then they ask that dual threat quarterback who's killing it at spring or at on scout team. They're like, hey, man, come be the running back for us. We're tired of using other people to play running back. Why don't you give it a shot? And he did. And for the first, couple of games there, he looked pretty explosive. The game against USC kind of broke out. And you knew that Jaquindon Jackson is capable of being a 1,000-yard rusher, but he didn't quite have the durability. He looks kind of big sometimes, but he didn't have the durability to take all the hits, and he went down with injuries and stuff. If he's healthy, I think he's a special running back. I think it's something that you just can't ignore. In the spring game, he looked amazing. He looked crisp, in shape, running fast, outrunning DBs. I don't know if that's good news for the second-string DBs or not, but he looked good. Jaquindon Jackson really impressed me. He's obviously the starting running back. I really liked the way he looked, though. That was very impressive to me. And then Rashad Dubinion, still a quality little dude, still in that running back room, did not follow his coach at Texas Tech. I like it. Shout out to Rashad Dubinion. You have Braylon Russell. This is a true freshman. Got in the spring game a little juice to him, pound for pound. Like, he's a bigger back, but he broke away. He had a long run. I like that. And if there's anybody who can contribute as a true freshman, it's typically wide receivers and running backs. So look for Braylon Russell to probably end up with a couple hundred yards rushing this year. We'll find out. On the defensive side, you see it right there. Landon Jackson, like I told you, LSU transfer, alopecia. I don't care, bruh. He's a beast. That man's nice. Eric Gregory just hogs the middle. Doesn't really impress me much. Same with Cameron Ball. I told you, Kiwi Rose is nice. I like Kiwi Rose. Added depth to the team. Anton Junkaj. I hope I'm saying his name right. Led the FCS in sacks last year. Okay, I want to say he played at Albany. Let me double check. I don't want to get that wrong. He played at Albany. Yep, Albany. This guy pops on tape. I went back and watched the tape. He and the other edge rusher for Albany both went FBS. They both transferred. But this guy's special. So seeing him and Jackson on the edges is probably pretty exciting. I'm curious to see what happens here. This could be a problem. And like I told you, Brad Spence has really separated himself from everybody else at that will linebacker spot. Very impressed with him. Xavier Sori, it's a Georgia transfer from a 5-star guy. Just too much athleticism to ignore. He's starting at middle linebacker. That's not bad at all. Jalen Braxton, good player, young player, going to be starting, right? I think he's going to have to compete for playing time, or TJ Metcalf will. One of these two are going to be fighting because they just brought in a transfer, and I'll show you here in a few. Miguel Mitchell, junior transfer. Remember I told you Jaden Johnson was 3rd on the team in tackles last year, and he's not starting anymore because of Miguel Mitchell. Miguel Mitchell transfers from Florida. He was 6th on the team at Florida in tackles, 5th or 6th, and he shows up and takes a starting spot. Danico Slaughter takes a starting spot. It's cool. Marquise Robinson, all these guys taking starting spots. That's cool, but they're bringing in a Utah State safety that can really play. A kid used to play at Arkansas State. I'll show you here in a few. Not on the chart right now. And remember, former 5-star Jaheim Singletary coming over from Georgia. Once again, looking pretty decent. Matthew Shipley is a terrible kicker. He's from Hawaii. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what you're going to do, but I saw this man just falling apart. They tell me he kicks better at practice, but what I saw at the spring game was gross, and he just came in. I'm going to go back and check everything, but right now it looks like kicking is a liability for Arkansas. Just saying. It could cost them in a close game, okay? Transfer portal, Caffrey Brown. So, Caffrey Brown, this is a young man who he used to play at North Carolina. After 2 years in North Carolina, transfers to South Florida. Finally gets a quarterback that'll find him the ball. Byron Brown is him. That's the quarterback for South Florida. Great player. And he goes out there and starts throwing to this kid Brown here, and just stud. Just looks the part, and he's going to come in. I believe he's going to take that spot from that sophomore receiver. Remember, I'm looking here, and I'm going, oh, no, they don't like Isaiah. They don't like Stegman. They tell you they do. But if they did, after the spring game, you wouldn't be signing Brown from South Florida. If you like your wide receiver room, you wouldn't have signed this kid. You saw what you saw in the spring and said, nah, we don't have it. We're going to go get this kid. Now they go get another defensive lineman in the rotation, Danny Sally here. This is Sally. This is a kid. He went to Hutchinson Community College for 2 years. It says 6'2", 389. He's almost 400 pounds. Well, he's got his weight under control, kinda. I think he's 360 when he plays. He never played at BYU. He just transferred there. No, he played at No, he didn't. I don't think he played at BYU. He just transferred there this winter, and now he's going here. He was supposed to go to Texas Tech. Flipped from Texas Tech to BYU. That's what it is. And now he's flipping again. Guys, it's hard to keep it all up here. It's hard to keep everything up here, but I got you. Blake Boda, They tell me he's highly coveted, highly recruited, and that's a guy fighting for the backup quarterback spot. Yikes. Blake Boda coming from Coastal Carolina. Yes, he's 6'4", 200 pounds. I've only seen him throw one pass. It was a 14-yard completion, but I've only seen him throw one pass. And Ethan Vasco beat him out to be the quarterback at Coastal Carolina now that McCall's gone. So I'm not even that impressed with Boda. I'm being real. Steven Dix Jr., he's him. So Steven Dix Jr. is chiseled out of his mind. It looks like he's out of a movie, all right? This is a linebacker. He's going to be in the rotation. This is a former Florida State linebacker, got injured, never got that chance at Florida State, went to Marshall last year, ended up with like 60 tackles, ended up being pretty damn decent. So he jumps back in the portal after he proved he can play in the Sun Belt, and he's like, all right, now where am I going to go? I'm going to transfer to Arkansas, and he's back in the SEC. Back at Power 5 football, I should say. Congratulations. Joe Moore leaving Syracuse. Joe Moore never really played at Syracuse, but he has been a starter before. That's because he spent 4 years at Richmond in the FCS. That's why his jersey there is blue and red. He was at Richmond for 4 years, started those last 2 years at Richmond. Good depth on the offensive line, and they need help at the offensive line. These are all guys they signed in the spring, by the way. I don't have the dates here, but yeah, there it is, the dates, 400. So if you see April, those are spring signings, and then you get Miguel Mitchell before in the thing. This is why most of these spring guys are not on that depth chart from our lads, because our lads is not always up to date. And by the way, they don't have all the transfers here. On3 does not have them all 24/7. Neither website is right, okay? Just so we're clear. Anthony Switzer, stud safety, used to play at Arkansas State, transferred to Utah State because he was too good at Arkansas, went up there to Utah State, still balled out of control, and now he hits the transfer portal for his final year. Coming back home, he's an Arkansas kid. Okay, turned down, I believe he had a visit to Pitt, and he turned down the visit to Pitt to go to Arkansas. So good win by Arkansas. This is a good player. He'll be in the rotation and in the field. Larry, and it's good to get senior guys. When you're looking at your depth chart and all you see is sophomores like this, sophomore TJ Mitchell and Brack, you're like, hey man, we need to go get a different nickel corner. We need to go get somebody else that can get in this rotation that we trust. And they were also, I want to say something. Arkansas was anticipating losing players, and they didn't lose that many. They're at 82 or 83 scholarships right now. They got room to sign some more guys. So just trust. They're going to be just fine in that regard. Larry Worth. I like Larry Worth. You guys know I watch a lot of Jacksonville State football. If you're an MVP and you watch during the week games when we go and televise it, Larry Worth was one of those guys, 6'4", 220. That says 210 here. It's out of high school. He's 220, 230, 6'4". He's the right size for a linebacker, and he was doing pretty damn decent. Over 60 tackles at Jacksonville State last year, transferring into Arkansas. They don't need him to start. This is good depth. Good young player, going to push you at practice. Eventually, he'll get in that rotation. Maybe starts in a year or two. Rodney Hill. You know, Rodney Hill blocked me on Twitter, or maybe I blocked him. I don't remember how it really went. He's just an upset young man, and the reality is I didn't think too highly of him and the decisions he's making. Rodney Hill, coming out of high school, went to Florida State. They wouldn't give him the NIL he was asking for, so he jumped in the portal and left. And he was getting some run. He was getting some playing time at Florida State in junk time, you know. And then you lose your star running back to the NFL. Now here's your chance, and they go and sign other running backs in the transfer portal like they don't give a shit about you, Rodney Hill. So Rodney Hill eventually committed to Florida A&M. Then they lost their coach, Willie Simmons. He left to Duke to be the running backs coach. So then he's like, I'm not going to Florida A&M. I'll go to Miami. So he commits to Miami. Then he decides, no, I'm going to enroll at Florida A&M. And the reason he did that was to ensure he stayed academically eligible by getting and completing his classes. So he completed his classes at A&M for the spring, jumped right back in the transfer portal. Never really intended to play at A&M. He just attended the school there. And he jumped right back in the transfer portal and went to the highest bidder. He wanted money. He got his money. This is a kid who looks okay on his high school tape, looks okay when he's on the field, nothing remarkable. I don't see him being better than Rashad DeBinion. I think he's the fourth-string running back. Congratulations for transferring to Arkansas. Miguel Mitchell, like I told you, coming in 6'3", 200 pounds. You can't deny this man. He's a starter at Arkansas at safety. They've had some terrible safety play 2 years in a row now. Shout out to Miles Slusher as well. But now they found their player. Anton Junkin, I told you, Junkaj, I don't know how to say that last name. This man is a beast on tape, dominating the FCS, leading the whole country in sacks. going straight to the SEC. Want to prove I can play at the NFL level? This is how you do it. Congratulations. Jaquindon Jackson, 6'2", 220, 230 running back with speed, man. That's an NFL caliber athlete. If we can figure out where we're going to play him and what we're going to do, I like it. A 6'2" corner, leaving South Alabama, Marquis Robinson, good player, going to start. Jordan Anthony, like I said, incredibly fast. I don't think he has any business playing in the SEC. They keep signing him everywhere because he's a speed demon. Congratulations. Xavier Ansori, former, they say 4-star, but I know he's a 5-star. Got the right size and athleticism. They got to put him in the starting lineup. More power to him. Addison Nichols coming over from Tennessee. 2 years ago, this was the gem of the 2022 Tennessee recruiting class. The gem of it all. He really was. Okay, coming out of Georgia. Then he Greater Atlanta Christian School, and then he goes to now he's moving to center. Going to go play and start for Arkansas. Congratulations. Terrible kicker in Matthew Shipley from what I've seen. Fernando Carmona, like I said, not impressed with his tape at San Jose State. Congratulations. Shout out to him. I've had a lot of his fan base reach out to me and tell me I need to give his tape a look over again and reevaluate. No, I don't. Dude was 6'4", 220 on his tape, and he gained a bunch of weight, and now you think he can start in the SEC? Congratulations. Slaughter, going to start, probably be in the rotation. Hope he stays injury-free and plays. Taylor Green, complete stud. This Andres Paz transferring in from EMU, this is a waste of a transfer. I don't get it. They don't need tight ends. I guess they signed him in the winter. So they were anticipating losing Varkey's Gums. That's all I can think of because they didn't need this guy at all, and he's not going to be in the top 3 tight ends from my perspective. Blackstock starting. So, glad we went over the whole team. Glad we talked about it. How many games are they going to win? Well, you see it. They play University of Arkansas Pine Bluff to start the season. They will beat the hell out of them. They're at Oklahoma State on the road against a team like Oklahoma State that's returning 19 starters. It just looks like a grim task. Yes, they're the SEC team versus a Big 12 team. Yes, they have skill players that can keep up and do things. It just doesn't look like that's a game they want to play. That one's going to be really difficult for them. Just keeping it real. They should beat UAB. I don't like them on the road at Auburn at all. That looks scary. This game against A&M is not at home. It's in Texas. It's at Jerry's World, right? It's at AT&T Stadium. So once again, you don't have a home game. No real home games where they what's this one? This is their only home game in the first month? Their only home game is UAB, bro. That's crazy to me, right? Then you don't get another one till Tennessee. You don't want to be playing A&M and Tennessee in back-to-back weeks. You get 2 weeks to prepare for LSU. All these feel like losses. They have a chance at Mississippi State. Once again, on the road, they have a chance to beat Mississippi State. Not beating Ole Miss, not beating Texas. I don't care if you have 2 weeks of prep. You're not beating Texas or Ole Miss. And then you got La Tech and Missouri. It's a brutal schedule for Arkansas. I actually think at some point during this season, with the way they're going to be performing, I think they're gonna have a coaching change. That's why they brought in, a new offensive coordinator that they trust to coach the team. If I can be frank, I think there will be some horrific things going down with this team. I think they're gonna struggle. And they're going to struggle immensely. At best, I see them winning 1. So they have 3 wins on the schedule, automatic. 3 wins. It's UAB or UAPB, UAB, and La Tech. Those are the 3 wins I got for them, right? Then after that, they only have 2 games that they have a shot in, and that's Mississippi State and Auburn. 2. And I like Auburn more than them. I do. Okay? And then Mississippi State, they probably beat them. They probably do, but they're on the road for both of those games. And if you think they're beating Oklahoma State, then more power to you. So when it was 5.5, I was laughing. That was the lock of all locks. Okay? But now that it's 4.5, and you know they got 3 wins, are they going to win one of those toss-up games? I think so. They could lose them all, though. So with that being said, their offensive line can't withstand injuries. Okay? They will have an immense drop-off at quarterback if anything goes wrong. I don't think their receivers are SEC caliber by any means. They're good. They're fine. But they look like a group of 5 receiving room. They look like a wide receiver group from the MAC. They look like maybe a Big 12 wide receiver room. Not even. It doesn't look SEC caliber at all in the wide receiver room. Running backs look special. Coach might be able to do something with you. Quarterback is good. Defensively, very improved. But I think those wide receivers are going to struggle. I do. So, I got them on the under. I'll show it to you here. I got them on the under, especially because the under is a plus 100. So, the under is a plus 100. I'd probably do even more than 1 unit on this. But the under 4.5 wins. I know they're going to win 3. Are they going to beat Mississippi State at home on the road? Are they going to beat Auburn on the road or Oklahoma State? They got to beat 2 out of those 3 to get above 4.5. 2 out of those 3. Oklahoma State at home, or, I'm saying Oklahoma State will be at home. Auburn will be at home. Mississippi State will be at home. They got to beat 2 of those 3 for this bet to hit on the over. So I really like the under, and I like it at plus 100. I think a lot of people were betting this under. As soon as it was at 5.5, people were betting the hell out of it, and then they had to lower it to 4.5. That's what happened there. I think money drove this one, just like money drove the Colorado line from 5.5 to 4.5, or from 4.5 to 5.5. So this Arkansas one opened at 5.5, and it's gone down. And I think it's because of money. So I'm all on the under, and I think you should be too. At least 1 unit. You guys see the chart here. I'll be breaking down a team every single day. We'll keep going until the start of the season. I think we're 100 days away. I should be able to fit in all these teams and then start hitting the group of 5. Your friends don't know, but Rico knows. I hope you learned a lot about Arkansas. Peace.